Welcome to TradeTheNBI.com. This is John. This report is for the 2nd of December. What an exciting day for the first of the month. I mean, things looked really good. Like, again, we talked about 46.13 was our previous level above. Could be relatively long up into the ABM yellow, and we knew before when we pushed up against it, we faded back. Future started out really good, so we opened up midway through, and once it passed above 46.13, things were fairly strong for a little bit. It was interesting because within that there were still, we'll see it intraday, positive extremes in that, so it set up a pretty good, what I expected to be just a short going back to, at least this range, or not a little bit more. But we talked about my secondary level of 4,500 as a complete fill going back into here for the softer, almost positive extremes in the yellow. And boy, did we just fill that in after hours. That was pretty darn quick. And it just literally dumped to that right as the close was taking place. From an NQ standpoint, finally getting weaker. Now that's clean as far as having the white NBI over orange, and that usually produces pretty decent fallback. But of course, you can still look at this, and we're still a long way from where we were back in October off that dip. And certainly there's far more concerning aspects going on now than there were then. So that just gives it some relative understanding that this isn't all that dramatic, but it does nonetheless. All that money they kept talking about moving in for December, the rally and everything, we began to see it really at the emergence of that heading towards treasuries and safety, which that's not exactly the kind of rotation into stocks that you would want to see as far as a liquidity boost to help move it, because we just don't have the shorts that would generate push forward, or at least help drive price higher. And because of that started positive, the euro faded back a little bit. It wasn't going anywhere anyway, so kind of a moot point. Though shakeout's improving quite a bit. If we get back to a positive shakeout, now we could catch a little bit of a run from the euro on that. And so there it is, the TLT continuing to rise. That's driving yields even lower. So people are willing to owe money with inflation, then put it at risk in the market, and that's just because of the exposure to capital, given what they're seeing. So it's always the telltale early sign of ships in trouble when people are fleeing to quality just to be safe. And it's not helping to be in crypto either, because in this particular case started off with a pretty good run, was looking pretty strong, and then just collapsed. Was pretty clean too with the collapse. 50K was going along strong up there, and then we got up into that 47, just under 50 range, and then once we made the quick spike up into the 60s, it was a complete turnaround. And it had already begun when we saw the magenta dipping across right there. That was about 47.30 range. We popped back up right after it, back up to the 49. And it moved back and forth. It looked like it was going to hold on, but every time we made an attempt, we just crossed back over once the white over red situation, and that was again similar, a little bit lower, instead of at 27 down to 22, right at the 50%. And from there, once it collapsed, it was non-stop. And then the little attempted rally at the end, this is from Ether. Still nothing. So pretty good action when you look at it, when you think of it from a crypto standpoint. It's pretty clean, pretty consistent. No objection. Here's the 50K that I was referring to. I've spoken on that one before. Magenta moving lower. The reflection of this rose color is simply because we had DOC cyan below red, even though once that green crosses below, usually consider that a good one from that earlier entry, and really fell off nicely. I mean, the actual breakdown, even though it happened a little bit Earlier than that, again, once you've gone this period of time without a cross of the red, I usually like to wait for that confirmation, even if it means I'm going to capture a little bit lower. And there you can see with the 4500 algo, and then also all the way down to 4435, I would get another 70 away. And there's just plenty of room down lower should participants not want to get involved. And that, I think, is really what you want to look for, is that just basically avoiding, new buyers coming to it, and the weight of people needing to move out of things, and just what few shorts would take to make those really collapse, sort of like what we were seeing. I mean, we were back and forth quite a ways, even just in this last little run. So from an intraday, we started out moving kind of high. We ended up, a lot of these keep changing as I hit new positive extremes and recalibrated, because we started with that literally at the beginning of this run that literally started just at the open, and proceeded then to put in its first sell. And this is where you can see it, the sign is still under red, but moving up, and green coming down below. The difference between this one and when we were looking at just a moment ago, the white not crossing the red doesn't happen until a little bit later. And when that white does cross the red, in this particular case, that's when the move made, and a little bit better than the 50% on that move, but right back to that 4618 from an algo standpoint. So it literally just filled back in the setup, and those are pretty clean. The turnaround was pretty straightforward. I was a little misleading with the red starting out first, and then magenta popped over, and that was enough to signal in. That was at the other algo level, right around 34, and that created a whole nother series that were even a little bit higher than that level, and then turned around as well. And that's when things really started to get interesting, because I was playing around with this one as it was coming through here. I was attracted by that. It was like, okay, this is a peak. We've got some positive extremes below. I'm thinking, at least a dip to the 34, maybe a little bit more. And that's exactly what happened. And then when we popped back, I was like very excited, because like, oh, I got red leading, but then magenta popped over. And I thought, okay, well, we're just going to turn around and move back to, highs. But then just happened to be watching as that magenta dipped below white, and boom, that started this move here. And then we get the secondary signal of it. That was right around 46.35, and that would be the last time for a while that 46 would be seen, because we just cascaded right below the 4600 algo level, came back, tested it, hit with just a wall pretty fast, and every time we just kept rejecting, and that left us with a series of these deep red shakeout readings and no steel reset. And by the time we did get a steel reset, the first one took place right about there, all we got was just a breakdown. So it just basically negated any value that was giving off coming in, and we went to another long period with no steel reset. And then finally we came to where we started getting rising gold in Azure, even though we were in the depths of it. It started to build, and eventually turned green. It was like the only green in that long sea of red, and didn't take long before the sell signal came in. It was still marginally could be a profitable trade from the orange reading. So we got that first magenta reading right there. It was pretty clean, and that was right around the 45.80, and that was it. For the rest of the day, it was all just red. It was just a matter of pick your poison. Kept adding in different spots, and every time it broke down and I got another pop up, I would take opportunity to look for that to move back towards the zero. Just kept rinsing and repeating, and as we got to the end of the day, this one was pretty straightforward, clean setup, and it just fell apart all the way through the close. And you can see we're heading towards that 44.85 things remain this week. I think it's going to cause a few people to have a little bit of nerves going into the latter part of the week here. We knew it was going to get exciting, and I mean, from that daily look, though, again, I mean, not a whole lot of different than the sideways back and forth trading. It was just once we broke those, that 57 level, and it just wasn't any support there, and that just moved us out of the range, and just had us fill what the algo is going to be considering normalized retrace. So, but it's also the 50% mark, so that's relevant too, because that will attract some institutional guys, and if it doesn't, then we're really talking about heading back down to the 0.4200 range. So that will be much more significant and shocking, because everyone's expecting this holiday rally. But that's the beauty of the markets. When you're expecting something, often you get exactly the opposite, which is why I always like to say, just roll with what the signals are, and we will let them do the work for us, and we won't prejudge where it's going to head. As always, though, trade well, and we'll talk to you later.